Throughout the history of the fixed gear scene, Leader Bikes has been one of the most loved and at the same time one of the most hated fixed gear companies. For a hot minute, Leader was the default aluminum fixed gear bike, but they made some mistakes along the way and eventually went under. So how did Leader Bikes get so popular? What did they do right? What did they do wrong that led to their downfall? This is the rise, the fall, and the comeback, maybe, of Leader Bikes. What's up? I'm Zach Gallardo. Life is short, but don't make it shorter, so ride your bike every day to be reasonably dangerous, even if you are just riding on the bike trainer. And be sure to like this video and hit the subscribe button so YouTube knows to recommend you more fixed gear videos just like this one. To learn more about what exactly gives steel bikes their buttery smooth and a lively ride quality, feel free to check out the video I made with our channel sponsor Wabi Cycles when we talk in depth about steel tubing. In that video, we talk about the specific types of steel and how builders choose steel to balance weight, durability, and ride quality. Check out the steel tubing video by clicking the card above or by sticking around until the end of the video. With the release of the MASH SF and Macaframa movies, a lot of people were getting excited to ride fixed gear bikes. Lots of newer riders were looking to build bikes on a budget, and aluminum frames were really desirable at this time. There wasn't a whole lot of options for aluminum frame sets, especially ones that didn't break the bank. And back then, if you were trying to build an aluminum frame set on a budget, you could get a Visp from AliExpress. Other than that, you really didn't have any other options. That's where Leader Bikes comes in, and they were founded by a guy named Sal Lombroso, and they were founded in San Diego in the early 2000s. And in 2008, they started to become more popular and be on people's radars for cheap entry-level aluminum fixed gears. The thing that made Leader special is that their 7 Series frame sets had that thick aero aluminum tubing that a lot of riders were really into at the time. And it came in at a price point that was less than the bigger manufacturers. Leader did have some problems during this time period since they were still a pretty young company figuring things out. They had a lot of quality issues, like a weird rear triangle and dropout design where only half of the track end was usable, and they also had pretty ugly and chunky welds, and a lot of people on the forum said the paint chips if you look at it wrong. And right from the very beginning, Leader started to make a name for themselves, for better or for worse, by having this weird, super long geometry that a lot of people just couldn't find the right fit for. And on top of that, when people contact Leader for their inconsistent quality control, some people on bike forums were reporting that Sal in customer service, who turns out to be the founder of Leader Bikes, was really rude over the phone, dismissive of the problems, or Leader just flat out did not respond to their email questions. As far as people's perceptions go, they see that it's a new brand that is serving a hole in the market, so people had a lot of really mixed feelings about it. People pretty much saw Leader as one of those companies where you get what you pay for. You don't pay a whole lot, you don't get a whole lot, and you might have some headache in the process, but if you can get around those headaches, you can get a bike that you enjoy a lot for the money. Even in Leader's early years, there's some people that love them, and there's some people that hate them, and that's a trend that continues on for the rest of their life. At this point in time, fixed gear riding's initial burst in popularity began to taper off. But overall, fixed gear riding began maturing at this time. But Leader Bikes did start to see some competition. Eventon came onto the scene at this time, although they had a lot of problems of their own, where they weren't exactly accepted in the fixed gear community at this time. There were other brands like Throne that came onto the scene. Fixed gear riders started adopting the Dolan Precursor for street use, which is an excellent track bike for the money and competed directly with the Leader 721. And in 2013, All City came out with their Thunderdome, which competed directly with the Leader 735. And the increasingly popular Cinelli MASH models capitalized on the upper ends of the street fixed gear market that Leader was neglecting. But Leader still had a competitive advantage, and they were able to hold their own in the market at this time. They greatly improved the quality of their existing models, with the Leader 725 and 735 getting smooth welds, which was unheard of for track frame sets at this time, in the price range of $300 to $600. Their models also started getting more durable paint that didn't chip if you look at it wrong, and they most mostly resolved the clearance issues with their rear triangle. Leader also introduced a mid-range steel model in the 722 TS and the 722 Heritage Low. Leader also started selling heavily discounted frame sets that were slightly blemished or slightly defective through their eBay account Coghouse 5. Leader began officially sponsoring influential fixed gear riders like Emmy Brown and Masson, who continue the tradition of making these really sick edits of riding brakeless track bikes hard on the street, further improving Leader's branding and acceptance among the fixed gear crowd. They also began making the flagship Leader Kagero in collaboration with one of the most popular fixed gear blogs at the time, Pedal Consumption, to flex their muscles and show the world that they're capable of producing these high quality fixed gears that can compete with the Cinelli MASH lineup. Leader also started being carried by influential fixed gear shops like City Grounds and Brochures Osaka, the latter of which pushed Leader bikes really hard in Asia, so hard that Brochures made Leaders the de facto Asian fixed gear. Although they've improved a lot, not everything was perfect for Leader. The 2011 Leader 725 and 735 models had integrated seat clamps. The thing with integrated aluminum seat clamps is that you need to condition them by tightening them and loosening them a few times before installing a seat post. If you don't do this, the seat post will slip. A lot of people didn't do this. Leader did not communicate this fact very well to their customers. So a lot of people had slipping seat posts, over-tightened the seat post, and ripped the threads out of the integrated seat clamp, thus rendering their frame sets useless. This was such a big problem for Leader that they ended up having to redesign their seat clamp so it's not integrated with the frame with their 2011 725 and 735 mid models. The problem with the mid revised seat clamps, though, they creaked a lot. At this point, the fixed gear market is pretty mature. The flow of new fixed gear riders has slowed to a steady stream. Even so, Leader saw an increase in competition at this time. Aventon resolved a lot of their issues and provided features like exotic hydroform tubing for the same price as Leader, or even less. The 6-Coup Urban Track, which is the same parent company as Aventon, undercut every complete aluminum bike, and more budget brands carried by City Grounds like Crew, Throne, Cyclefix started cropping up with their own budget-friendly aluminum models. The State Black Label and Undefeated directly challenged the Leader 725 and 735 respectively, and Leader seemingly cannibalized their own lineup, with the 735 sitting in an awkward position, less expensive than the flagship Kagero, but more expensive than the mid-range 725. And speaking of the Leader Kagero, their competitor, the Cinelli MASH lineup, remained a lot more popular than theirs. They still held their own in the market, and this was even the peak time to be a Leader fan. And they were able to do this because they had better branding than a lot of their competitors. Aventon still lived in the shadow of their false advertising of their bikes having smooth welds in the past, and they still lived in the shadow of the horror stories of the weird misaligned rear triangles and terrible customer service. Meanwhile, State Bike Co. and Pure Cycles were trying to shed their reputations as overpriced, low-quality, colorful Fixie brands that preyed on new, uninformed riders, and the rest of them just sort of blended together at the lower ends, while the Leader 721 had stronger branding. While Leader still had a reputation for quirks, they improved their customer service greatly and their responsiveness to the needs of fixed gear riders, whereas the other brands appeared generic at best and predatory at worst. Leader was the comfortable pick since people were at least aware of exactly what the flaws are with the bikes. Leader became the default, the go-to aluminum fixed gear bike. And this was their peak, and they flourished during this time. They weren't just a faceless company anymore. Leader started sponsoring more riders and more track teams, further legitimizing themselves as a track bike. In 2014, they also produced these mesmerizing build-up videos of their bikes with Josh Hayes as the host, who is one of the original Macaframa guys that helped to popularize fixed gear riding in the first place, improving their reputation as a fixed gear company that's one of us. And Leader's founder Sal became good friends with the folks over at Retrogression, which was instrumental to their success. In 2014, Leader also released their second collaboration with the blog Pedal Consumption and released the Leader Renovatio as another flagship model to stand next to the Kagero. And in early 2015, Leader introduced the Cure, named so because Sal Lombroso, the founder of Leader Bikes, is a survivor of pancreatic cancer, if I'm remembering that type of cancer correctly, and he donated a portion of the profits from the Leader Cure model to cancer research. Leader also created the Leader Cretin, designed in collaboration with and named after the beer-chugging, heavily tattooed San Diego fixed gear crew, the Cretins. While Leader Bikes was at the top of their game between 2014 and 15, they did have some issues rolling around in the background that just seemed like they couldn't be solved. While the 2014 Leader 725 and 735 seat clamps was an improvement over their previous models, they did still creak a little bit. Creaking a little bit is better than creaking a lot, but it still ain't great. And Leader's great reputation during this time led to some copycat frames gaining some traction, especially in the Asian market. They say imitation is the highest form of flattery, but in Leader's case, flattery from a certain big country in Asia doesn't pay the bills. Fake leaders in Asia were flooding the market, hurting their reputation and their bottom line. And people were still asking for a seat clamp on their 7 Series bikes that worked and didn't creak. In an attempt to kill two birds with one stone, Leader yet again redesigned their seat clamp on the Leader 725 and 735 to this unconventional double bolt integrated seat clamp. While these seat clamps certainly made their 2015 models look a lot more unique and harder to copy, the clamp itself, as a seat clamp, sucked, to say the least. It seemed like there was just no way to properly install a seat post with this seat clamp design. Most people who bought frame sets with this new redesigned seat clamp ended up having cracked frame sets, and they ended up not honoring the warranties that were on their bikes. Pretty much, they scammed people out of their hundreds of dollars that they spent for these frame sets. As a result, by summer 2015, Leader's reputation made a complete 180 and took a deep nosedive. People were actively discouraging each other. Don't buy Leader. Fuck Leader became a sticker at some point, I think. I even remember it, especially in San Diego, where both Leader and Retrogression were headquartered. When I arrived in San Diego in mid-2014, I saw tons of Leaders, and by fall 2015, pretty much everybody had given up their Leaders. It was amazing how fast the company tanked. There were some rumors that in mid to late 2015, Leader was bought by Brochures Osaka, who was one of the biggest proponents of their frame sets, and Sal, the founder, started a bike company called Local Bikes, which was a generic-looking entry-level fixed gear brand that is so obscure at this point I couldn't even find any pictures for them. But fast forward to May 30th, 2019, Leader Bikes on their website, they make a blog post saying, "We're back. There's a lot of fake Leaders floating around the markets, and we will continue to fight the fakes." But at this point, 2019, 2020, it's too little, too late for the fixed gear crowd. Good for you. You defeated the copycats. I don't care. I want my money back 5 years ago. But with new leadership, can Leader keep up with these changing times, or will they eventually get dropped and tap out of the race. Leader has a lot more competition now. Aventon has a pretty good reputation now, although I think they shouldn't. Scream, Constantine, Engine 11, State, Bike Co. even has a pretty good reputation now. Sure, Leader has updated their models so that their bikes have tapered head tubes and Flores now for better front end stiffness, but so does the rest of the competition. And on top of that, their updated seat clamp, it still looks like it sucks. Why can't Leader just make a seat clamp? I want Leader to succeed, since it's good to see healthy competition in the fixed gear world, since all of us consumers get better bikes for the price in the process. But now it seems like Leader just can't keep up. At best, they're just another aluminum fixed gear company that saturates the market today, and at worst, they're the fixed gear company that betrayed people and scammed them out of their money. Leader just seems unclear about what they want to do for the fixed gear world, if anything at all. And they're not communicating much. I know because I contacted them for this video and they said, sure, ask us your questions. And I did, and then they just never responded to me again. I hope Leader can survive. They face some real tough competition now, but only time can tell if Leader can make the comeback. But if you want to know more about a company that knows how to design a seat clamp, feel free to check out these videos that I made in collaboration with Wabi Cycles. And Fixie famous shout out to Anthony Deza, Stand Strong 108, and Ryan Witt for helping to make these fixed gear videos possible through their contributions through Patreon.